We spend so much time worrying about carbs or fats, but here's the overlooked truth in 2025. Meal timing is often as important as food choices for metabolic health, especially as we age. The rhythm of eating can influence hormones, sleep, digestion, and energy more than most people realize. In this video, I'll walk you through research-backed strategies tailored for seniors, how to eat when your hunger is truly reliable again, hydrate without overdoing it, the safest way to approach fasting, why checking insulin really matters, plus the vitamin and protein basics too often missed. And it all begins with when you choose to eat. Eat when your body gives the signal. When it comes to eating well later in life, one of the most important tools you have is listening to your body's own signals. Many of us grew up on fixed eating schedules: breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 6. That system worked when our metabolism, hormones, and daily routines were more predictable. But as the decades go by, those signals shift. Hormones like ghrelin, which help regulate appetite, rise and fall differently than they used to. Digestion slows, and it takes longer for meals to move through your system. The result is that eating by the clock can sometimes mean forcing food when your body isn't actually ready for it. What often drives eating after 60 isn't hunger at all. Habit is one of the biggest culprits. You eat because it's lunchtime, not because your body asked. Other times, it's boredom. Opening the fridge becomes something to do, not a response to appetite. And for many, loneliness plays a role. Family meals may be less frequent, schedules may not align with friends, or a spouse may no longer be around. Food fills the silence, even when the body doesn't ask for fuel. These non-hunger triggers can add up to extra snacking or bigger portions. The habit provides temporary comfort, but it doesn't satisfy the underlying need for connection or stimulation, and your body pays the price with sluggish digestion or unwanted weight gain. Eating when your body isn't ready creates problems you might not notice at first. A slower digestive system means meals sit longer, leaving you bloated or heavy. If digestion is working at all hours, it can interfere with good rest. Going to bed on a full stomach reduces the body's ability to focus on restoring itself during the night. And while many fear large meals, steady grazing throughout the day can just as easily drive weight gain because calories pile up whether or not hunger is present. What feels like harmless nibbling can leave you dealing with more than just a sluggish afternoon. The simplest alternative is to reconnect with real hunger cues. Hunger is not a rigid schedule, it's a set of signals. For some, that's the familiar growl in the stomach. Others might notice a drop in energy, sharper focus on food thoughts, or even irritability. Cravings, on the other hand, tend to show up with very specific demands, like a sudden urge for cookies or salty snacks. True hunger is more flexible. You'd accept any number of foods to satisfy it. One practical way to test this is by starting small. If you're not sure whether you're hungry, try something light and nourishing such as a boiled egg, a piece of fruit, or some raw vegetables. If it's real hunger, it won't fade, it will grow, and you'll follow through with a meal. If it was a craving or habit, that light test food, or even a glass of water, is often enough to reveal it. This approach is not about restriction. In fact, when you eat in response to real hunger, food becomes more satisfying. A simple meal feels richer when the body is ready for it. Seniors practicing this approach often report that bloating eases within days, energy steadies throughout the afternoon, and sleep improves when late-night snacking no longer loads their system. None of this means intuitive eating guarantees weight loss or other fixed outcomes. Instead, studies show that those who rely on hunger cues tend to make healthier food choices, eat more nutrient-rich meals, and experience less emotional distress around food. The balance comes naturally when you stop running by strict rules and let internal signals guide decisions. The shift can feel strange at first. If you've eaten by schedule your entire life, filling a plate at noon feels almost automatic. This is where one simple question makes the difference. Am I genuinely hungry, or am I eating because of the time, my mood, or the situation? That pause interrupts the autopilot and creates space to make a better choice. Even a 30-second check-in or drinking a glass of water before reaching for food helps clarify whether hunger is real. Try this action today. Before your next snack, take just half a minute, ask yourself that question, and notice how the answer shapes your choice. It's a small test that builds awareness over time. Some may wonder what happens when hunger signals weaken. It's true that in later years, appetite can dull, leading not only to overeating at times, but also to undereating. That's why it's equally important to notice how you feel after meals. Do you feel alert and calm, or sluggish and groggy? These reactions are feedback from your body. They help you adjust portions without tracking calories or following rigid numbers. Over weeks, this feedback loop creates a balance where meals match your current needs more closely. This practice lines up with what researchers call intuitive eating, a framework studied in over 100 trials. People who embrace this approach give themselves unconditional permission to eat when truly hungry, separate emotional triggers from physical needs, and end up including more fruits, vegetables, dairy, and whole foods, all without rigid dieting. In one 2025 study, higher reliance on hunger and fullness cues was associated with healthier daily choices like eating breakfast and exercising more regularly, and with lower psychological distress. While individual results vary, the general pattern is clear. Responding to the body's signals builds a healthier, calmer relationship with food. It's also important to acknowledge the emotional side. Eating in solitude is not just a nutritional issue, it's a social and emotional one. Meals feel different when shared, and the absence of that community is difficult for many older adults. When food becomes a substitute for companionship, the solution may not be another diet tip, but finding new ways to add connection, whether through phone calls during meals, shared cooking, or community programs. Addressing the emotional triggers of eating makes tuning into physical hunger much easier, because food isn't carrying extra weight as a source of comfort. Over time, letting hunger lead the way brings your routine into alignment with your body's needs. It lifts the pressure of eating by numbers or by a clock and anchors meals in a rhythm that feels both natural and sustainable. And once you've cleared away the old routines that no longer match your body, the next step is learning how to support those signals with the right kind of balance, especially when it comes to fluids, since hydration needs also change with age in ways many of us never realized. Hydrate smarter, not harder. For years, many of us grew up hearing that the secret to good health was 8 full glasses of water a day. It sounded simple, but as you get older, that blanket rule doesn't always serve you well. Your body processes fluids differently past 60. Hormones that trigger thirst become less reliable, and the kidneys don't clear excess water as efficiently as they once did. That's why a one-size-fits-all number can mislead older adults. The safer goal is steady hydration across the day, combining drinks, hydrating foods, and electrolytes when needed instead of chasing a rigid quota. One of the challenges is that thirst itself dulls with age. You may not feel thirsty even when your body needs water, which explains why nearly 1 in 4 seniors are clinically dehydrated, a number that rises to 1 in 3 among those in long-term care or managing chronic illness. On the other hand, sticking too rigidly to 8 glasses without listening to your body can lead to overhydration. Too much plain water can dilute sodium levels in your blood, a condition known as hyponatremia. The early warning signs, dizziness, fatigue, or even confusion, are especially serious in older adults, since any imbalance that increases fall risk can spiral into broken bones and long recoveries. Pushing large amounts of water also places strain on organs that are less efficient with age. Instead of leaving you refreshed, it often results in constant bathroom trips, sleep disruption, and lingering fatigue. That's why your aim should be balance, not volume. Hydration is a partnership between your body's signals, the fluids you consume, and the minerals that keep water where it needs to be. So, how do you hydrate in a way that supports your body now? Think beyond water as the only answer. Yes, clean drinking water is the foundation, but hydration also comes from food. Fresh produce like cucumbers, watermelons, strawberries, and leafy greens delivers fluids packaged with natural minerals, which help you retain that hydration effectively. Soups and broths add a similar benefit. Bone broth, for instance, provides sodium and magnesium alongside the liquid, making it more supportive than plain water if you've been active or are on medications that alter your fluid balance. Electrolytes deserve their own attention. Sodium, potassium, magnesium, and chloride keep muscles contracting properly, nerves firing, and fluids balanced between tissues and blood. That's why plain water alone isn't always enough, especially if you're sweating from heat or activity or taking diuretics for blood pressure. Many reach for sports drinks, but unless you're exercising for extended periods in hot conditions, the added sugar and dyes in most of them outweigh the benefits. For daily use, a simple homemade option works better. A glass of mineral water with a small pinch of sea salt and a squeeze of lemon. If you've spoken to your doctor about your needs, you can also add a small measure of magnesium powder to support muscle and nerve function. The goal isn't flooding your body with additives, but creating a balanced fluid that your body actually retains. Medications often complicate hydration. Diuretics, for example, intentionally flush out fluid to reduce blood pressure, but they can also take electrolytes with them. Thiazide diuretics can lower potassium and sodium, while loop diuretics can cause more rapid losses. Other common prescriptions, including some ACE inhibitors, may also alter fluid handling. That's why it's important to check whether your medications affect hydration status. Ask your clinician if you should monitor electrolytes more closely or use a tailored solution beyond water alone. Taking the time to verify this can prevent issues before they arise, saving you both discomfort and risk. Fluids don't need to mean just water anyway. Herbal teas like chamomile, peppermint, or rooibos add subtle flavor without caffeine. They encourage steady sipping, which your body absorbs better than gulps of water, and they bring gentle digestive or calming effects. Decaf green tea similarly supplies antioxidants with hydration. Even lightly carbonated mineral water can feel more satisfying, and the minerals included can take some strain off your kidneys while keeping cells hydrated more effectively. Many older adults report they feel quenched more quickly with mineral water than with regular tap water, which can encourage consistent intake without discomfort. Equally important is when you hydrate. Drinking large amounts close to bedtime often leads to waking multiple times to use the bathroom. That interrupts deep sleep cycles that are already harder to sustain later in life. A practical workaround is front-loading fluids in the morning and early afternoon, then tapering as the evening progresses. If you often wake at night to urinate, shift most of your hydration earlier and make the last few hours before bed lighter on fluids. Sipping small amounts consistently through the day is far more effective than trying to catch up with 2 or 3 big glasses all at once. You can also tie hydration into your daily routine. Take a glass of water, broth, or an herbal tea alongside your morning medication. Add a small hydrating snack, like cucumber slices or orange wedges, mid-afternoon. These anchor points make steady hydration a habit without overwhelming you. If you spend time outdoors in hot or cold weather, plan in advance. Both conditions can increase fluid loss: heat through sweat, cold through increased urine output, and reduced circulation. Having modest electrolyte drinks on hand in those situations keeps you balanced without relying on sugar-heavy products. Morning is a valuable opportunity, too. After several hours of sleep and no fluid intake, your body wakes slightly dehydrated. Reaching for coffee or tea First thing, compounds. That because caffeine can act as a mild diuretic. Starting instead with warm water and lemon or a small cup of broth brings your system back to balance before introducing stimulants. You'll often find your energy steadier through the day with this small adjustment alone. Over time, these changes add up. Instead of dealing with the swings of overhydration followed by dehydration, you maintain steadier fluid levels. That translates into more consistent energy, fewer dizzy spells, less bloating, and better digestion. Your kidneys and heart aren't stressed by extremes, and your muscles and nerves perform more reliably. Gentle, regular hydration matched to your physiology gives far greater payoff than chasing arbitrary numbers or trendy tricks. The result is that water stops feeling like a rule you have to force and becomes an ally in maintaining daily stability. By working with rather than against your body's current state, you simplify one of the most overlooked but vital aspects of aging health. And once hydration is steady, the next question becomes what to put on your plate, because the food patterns you choose after 60 can shape your energy, heart health, and quality of life just as much as when and how you drink. Choosing the right diet after 60. By the time you reach your 60s, the question of which diet to follow feels less like curiosity and more like a responsibility tied to your health. Choosing the right diet after 60 isn't about chasing the latest headline or eating plan. It's about matching food to a body that has changed in ways that most public diet guides don't address. Decades of living alter how nutrients are absorbed and processed. Stomach acid production tends to decrease, making certain minerals like calcium harder to take in. Muscle naturally shrinks without enough protein to support it, so meals that used to work fine may now leave you undernourished. And when medications factor in whether to manage blood pressure, cholesterol, or digestion, the impact on nutrient balance can be significant. A diet that once worked earlier in life may look similar on your plate today, but leave you with deficiencies or complications tomorrow. Many popular diets are written for a wide audience and rarely consider the unique demands of older adults. For example, a high-fat ketogenic plan may support blood sugar control for certain people, but in seniors, digestive slowdowns or gallbladder strain can become concerns. At the same time, a fully plant-based diet can look ideal on paper, yet risk accelerating muscle loss if protein needs aren't carefully met. Neither of these approaches is inherently bad, but they show how extremes can be risky without adjustments. For seniors, the safer path is not about identifying the best diet, but about making sure any eating pattern matches individual health conditions, medications, and daily energy needs. To simplify that process, you can remember 3 decision rules when assessing a diet. First, prioritize protein and nutrient density. A lean protein source, such as fish, poultry, eggs, or legumes, helps protect muscle mass, while vegetables and whole grains supply essential vitamins and fiber. For example, adding salmon twice a week can make a noticeable difference in preserving strength while also supporting joint health with omega-3 fats. Second, match your eating style to your health conditions and medications. If your kidneys are under strain, more protein isn't necessarily better. If blood pressure is high, potassium-rich foods like beans and leafy greens become especially valuable. As a specific example, someone taking a diuretic may need extra attention to electrolytes, which influences how they design meals. Third, favor sustainability and social enjoyment. An eating approach that cuts out every food you enjoy will not last. Sharing pasta with family or having the occasional dessert can fit within a healthy dietary pattern if the majority of your meals are balanced. These rules provide a structure that takes pressure off the need to locate one perfect plan, and they remind you that food decisions can and should be flexible. Some patterns, like the Mediterranean style of eating, align naturally with these principles and remain one of the best supported approaches in research. Among widely studied patterns, the Mediterranean diet consistently shows strong evidence for cardiovascular benefit in older adults. The foundation: vegetables, fruits, whole grains, olive oil, fish, and legumes delivers a balance of antioxidants, healthy fats, and moderate protein without leaning into extreme rules. More importantly, it's adaptable. You can have meals that feel familiar, enjoy occasional indulgences, and still maintain the health benefits over time. One way to know whether your dietary approach is working is to layer in feedback from basic labs. Use a couple of simple tests: fasting glucose, a lipid panel, and basic kidney function to see what your body needs. These results are often more useful than rigid diet rules. For example, if you notice fasting glucose creeping upward despite eating plenty of vegetables, a slight reduction in refined grains may help tune your balance. If cholesterol ratios shift in the wrong direction, trading some animal fats for extra olive oil and fish could correct it quickly. These small but targeted adjustments based on measurable changes tend to work better than adopting entire diet trends at once. Another part of personalizing your diet is paying attention to bodily feedback alongside what the labs show. Digestion is a strong signal. Does your stomach feel heavy after certain meals? Or does bloating distract from sleep? Fatigue, brain fog, or joint stiffness can also correlate with dietary patterns. Even tracking how your energy holds up between meals gives clues about whether your plan is supportive. Trial periods of 2 to 4 weeks on a chosen pattern, followed by reflection, let you gather this feedback without committing long-term too quickly. For some people, minor adjustments inside an overall Mediterranean-style framework bring optimal results. That might mean increasing dairy or legumes for added protein, as long as digestion tolerates them. Others may find that including some intermittent fasting principles, such as a longer overnight break from food, improves energy control, provided they don't experience dizziness or medication conflicts. The goal is not to lock yourself into a dietary identity, keto, vegan, low carb, but to use these patterns as toolkits that can be combined and reshaped. Equally critical is the social side of eating. Food is rarely just nutrients. It's also a connector. Many older adults abandon diets, not because the nutrients fail them, but because the diet excludes what brings joy: family recipes, cultural meals, or shared traditions. A sustainable plan has room for these moments. It doesn't treat them as cheat meals, but as natural parts of a healthy lifestyle. Studies in Mediterranean regions consistently note that food culture there supports both health and enjoyment, a lesson worth adapting. This is also where sustainability links back to mental outlook. At this stage of life, the question isn't whether you can stick to a diet for 30 days, but whether your way of eating still supports you 5 or 10 years from now. If your chosen approach feels isolating, inconvenient, or burdensome, it likely won't last. But if it fits your regular routines, helps manage health conditions, and still allows for foods you genuinely like, the chances of lasting success improve dramatically. The big takeaway is that instead of asking, which diet should I choose at my age, a more useful question is, which foods strengthen me, fit around my conditions, and still feel enjoyable? Personalized nutrition doesn't mean endless tracking or spreadsheets. It is simply paying attention to both numbers and daily comfort, then adjusting with ongoing flexibility. Once this clarity sets in, diet stops being overwhelming and starts being supportive. That shift can help your meals nourish both your body and your lifestyle. And as you refine what foods work best, the next layer is considering when to eat. Many older adults are experimenting with patterns of fasting that younger people popularized, but the details matter greatly after 60. Intermittent fasting, senior edition. Intermittent fasting takes on a very different shape once you reach your 60s and beyond. What works for a younger body with deeper energy reserves and fewer medication demands does not always translate safely into later decades. That doesn't mean fasting has to be ruled out. Instead, it needs to be applied in a way calibrated for aging physiology. Evidence indicates that shorter overnight fasting windows of about 12 to 14 hours can improve insulin sensitivity in older adults without adding undue risk. This gentler rhythm provides benefits while still respecting the body's reduced resilience compared to earlier years. The reason this matters is simple. Missing meals may not hit a younger person very hard, but an older adult can quickly feel shaky or lightheaded when food intake is delayed too long. Balance and fall risk are already major concerns in later life, and layering dizziness on top of that only increases the danger. Energy dips can also come faster. Add in regular prescriptions that must be taken with food, and you have another reason extended fasts may carry consequences. Blood pressure drugs, blood thinners, and many pain medications specifically note the need for food to prevent stomach irritation or to improve absorption. Ignoring those instructions by fasting all morning is more than uncomfortable. It can interfere with the very treatment meant to stabilize health. Large clinical trials in frail or elderly populations are still limited, so applying fasting loosely or to extremes is not recommended. For any older adult, the main safety net is to start conservatively and listen for feedback signals from the body. For those who are underweight, struggling with frailty, or taking medications tied to food timing, fasting may not be appropriate at all. A medical conversation before altering your routine is essential. And if you have diabetes or use medications that affect blood sugar, fasting alone carries added danger. In those cases, glucose monitoring and clinician supervision are not optional. They are the only safe way to experiment. That said, for those who are medically cleared, the overnight fast is an approach that blends naturally with daily patterns. If dinner ends around 7 p.m., not eating again until 7 a.m. easily provides a 12-hour break. Pushing breakfast out to 8 or 9 a.m. extends that to 13 or 14 hours with little disruption. What makes this so practical is that it doesn't require skipping entire meals or straining willpower all day. It simply works with the inactivity of sleep. A modest pause gives the body time to bring insulin levels down, improve sensitivity, and let digestion rest, all while staying well within what most older adults can tolerate routinely. A gradual rollout makes it easier to test safely. Start by extending the gap between dinner and breakfast just 1 extra hour for the first week. Pay attention to daytime energy, medication timing, and sleep quality. If those remain steady, try adding another half hour or hour the following week. By building slowly, the body adapts without shock, and you gain real-world feedback about whether this change supports or strains your system. There is no need to push toward extreme fasting schedules. Research shows that even these small overnight changes are enough to provide metabolic benefits. One hidden gain from adopting this routine is its impact on protein management. Every additional year past 60, protecting muscle mass becomes more important. Fasts longer than 16 hours can make it harder to distribute protein evenly throughout the day, and digestion slows with age, so absorbing one massive protein-heavy meal at night is far less effective than spreading intake over 2 or 3 lighter meals. By sticking to the 12 to 14-hour range, you allow for protein doses at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all easier for muscle to use in support of strength and mobility. Appetite signaling also stabilizes with consistent overnight fasting. For many seniors, late-night snacking is driven more by habit or sleep disruption than by genuine hunger. By setting an evening cutoff point, perhaps around the same time as your last medication dose, you cut out those unnecessary extra calories and give digestion an opportunity to finish its work before sleep. It generally takes about 5 hours to fully clear a meal, and only after that can the intestinal lining focus on repair and recovery. By avoiding food late at night, you protect both gut and sleep quality, and in turn the following day feels more energized. Hydration is an important part of any fasting period. Zero-calorie beverages such as plain water, herbal tea, or mineral water can support comfort without breaking the fast. The key point is moderation. Too much water in a short span, especially on an empty stomach, can leave you feeling weaker or cause electrolyte dilution. Steady sipping through the morning hours works better, including mineral-rich options such as a splash of lemon water or broth before fasting begins, helps balance electrolytes and reduce the likelihood of dizziness. This also reduces the risk of orthostatic hypotension, that sense of lightheadedness when standing up after sitting for a while, which becomes more common with age. Another benefit of the overnight approach is its sustainability. The routine asks little in terms of disruption, which means it can become a habit rather than a short-term experiment. It does not make social meals more difficult, since lunch and dinner stay intact, and if breakfast is only delayed by an hour or two, family routines are not strongly affected. The underlying result is a reduction in grazing, those extra snacks that accumulate from boredom rather than hunger. Over time, many seniors experience steadier energy, less bloating, and easier digestion simply from removing nighttime eating. Still, fasting is not universal. Anyone with frailty indicators, unexplained weight loss, or conditions requiring frequent meals is better served by focusing on balanced nutrition rather than time-restricted eating. The message is not that all older adults must fast, but that shorter, safer fasting windows can be one practical tool when applied cautiously. The low-risk way to approach this is always to personalize it. Use a short window, expand gently, and continually check for side effects or disruptions. If fasting feels like it supports your life rather than interrupts it, then you are on the right track. It should not create fatigue, interfere with social meals, or undermine the stability of medications. Done thoughtfully, fasting becomes a form of rhythm adjustment, spacing meals in a way that enhances rest, sharpens insulin sensitivity, and simplifies appetite control without becoming a strain. This balance is what allows some seniors to experience the benefits while avoiding the pitfalls. The larger picture is that timing meals differently can improve how the body processes sugar and manages energy. That effect unfolds quietly long before more obvious health problems appear. For many adults in later life, the real win is protecting against changes that creep in silently. And that raises a deeper question, because while fasting can help regulate the body's rhythm, the real underlying driver of many age-related issues is something few doctors emphasize during routine visits: why insulin levels matter more than cholesterol. Most visits to the doctor start with a discussion about cholesterol. For decades, cholesterol has been positioned as the primary number to watch if you want to reduce your risk of heart disease. You've probably had multiple cholesterol panels done, and many people are even placed on medications to bring their levels down. But for those over 60, another marker often gives far more insight into hidden risks: fasting insulin. Fasting insulin measures how much insulin is circulating in your bloodstream after you've gone several hours without food, usually first thing in the morning. While cholesterol can point to certain cardiovascular risks, fasting insulin provides a much earlier look at how your metabolism is functioning. What makes this so important is that insulin levels can climb years before routine tests like fasting glucose or A1C show anything out of the ordinary. You could walk away from a regular blood test being told that your sugar is fine, while behind the scenes your pancreas is overworking to keep that number normal. That overproduction silently drives changes in the body. Constantly elevated insulin signals the body to store fat, especially around the abdomen. This often explains the stubborn belly fat that many older adults can't seem to lose, even with careful dieting. It's not always about eating too much. It's about insulin keeping fat locked in place. Over time, chronic high insulin also pushes cells toward insulin resistance. When your tissues stop responding efficiently, the pancreas ramps up production even further, and the cycle accelerates. For older adults, this process often progresses faster, simply because the body isn't as resilient as it once was. This is where focusing only on cholesterol becomes limiting. Cholesterol alone does not fully predict who will have a heart attack or stroke. Some people with average cholesterol levels still develop heart disease, while others with higher readings never do. Insulin, however, links directly to the root causes: inflammation in blood vessels, rising blood pressure, kidney stress, and even cognitive decline. Elevated insulin is not just about numbers on a lab report. It represents the early fuel driving many chronic conditions that define aging. The good news is that testing insulin is straightforward and inexpensive. It requires the same blood draw you already do for glucose and cholesterol. Despite this, it is often skipped, leaving early signs of metabolic imbalance unnoticed. For seniors, adding fasting insulin to your annual labs can provide years of advance warning. The American Diabetes Association's 2025 Standards of Care in Diabetes highlight this, stressing that insulin testing should not be overlooked when evaluating metabolic health. By identifying imbalances early, you and your doctor have a chance to act before elevated glucose, A1C, or overt diabetes appear. What makes insulin testing particularly useful is the detail it adds to risk assessment. Two people can have identical fasting glucose readings, giving the impression that both are equally healthy. But one of them may have high insulin levels, meaning the pancreas is working overtime, while the other is stable. Without checking insulin, they appear similar. With insulin, it becomes clear who is teetering on the edge of metabolic dysfunction. That distinction allows for earlier, more targeted lifestyle adjustments instead of waiting for blood sugar to break down. So, what should you do if fasting insulin is elevated? The strategies are practical and do not require extreme changes. Modest weight loss, sometimes just 5 to 10 pounds, can make levels drop significantly. Reducing refined carbohydrates like pastries, soft drinks, and processed bread lowers the constant insulin demand. Replacing those calories with vegetables, legumes, and fiber slows absorption and helps cells respond better. Even small changes in how you time meals, like an overnight fast of 12 to 14 hours, have been shown to support insulin sensitivity without overstraining seniors. How you move also plays a role. You don't need intense exercise sessions to improve insulin response. Gentle activities after meals are particularly effective. A 10-minute walk after dinner, for instance, leads muscles to take up glucose more efficiently, reducing the need for extra insulin. Done consistently, this small effort accumulates into noticeable improvements. For those who don't participate in formal workouts, walking, light housework, or gardening can all benefit insulin in practical ways. Diet composition matters too. Distributed protein intake, spreading protein evenly across breakfast, lunch, and dinner, improves muscle preservation and insulin handling. Seniors often get most of their protein at one meal, which reduces its effectiveness. Shifting to include a protein source at every meal, whether eggs, dairy, legumes, or fish, helps keep insulin stable while protecting against muscle loss. Pairing this with fewer refined carbs smooths spikes throughout the day rather than putting pressure on the pancreas in large waves. The benefits of targeting insulin often ripple outward. As fasting insulin improves, other key numbers tend to follow. Triglycerides drop, HDL cholesterol climbs, and blood pressure stabilizes. Instead of seeing each marker in isolation, addressing insulin creates a foundational adjustment that supports multiple systems at once. This makes insulin an efficient lever. It gives you more progress for the same amount of effort. It's important to be clear, though, early intervention is not a guaranteed shield against disease. Outcomes vary from person to person, and progress depends on consistency, follow-up testing, and other health conditions. But research demonstrates that catching elevated insulin early often allows people to slow or reduce their risk of diabetes and related complications. In practice, That translates to extra years of better energy, less abdominal weight gain, and steadier metabolic health. If you aren't sure whether insulin testing is part of your routine labs, ask your clinician directly at your next appointment. One simple request: a fasting insulin measurement can add valuable context to the numbers you already track. And if it comes back elevated, you don't need to overhaul your entire lifestyle at once. Start with distributed protein across meals, reduce obvious refined carbs, and add walking after the 2 largest meals of the day. These small, steady habits are highly effective in improving insulin sensitivity over time. This is the real value of making insulin part of the conversation. It shifts the focus away from chasing cholesterol targets in isolation and toward addressing early metabolic signs that drive chronic issues. For seniors, that means gaining time, the time to adjust lifestyle before the more advanced problems appear. And when you think about protecting long-term stability, the same logic applies to many other areas of health. One of the biggest and most practical involves strengthening the body against fractures and loss of independence, where another overlooked nutrient quietly plays a critical role. Vitamin D, your anti-fracture insurance policy. Vitamin D often goes overlooked, yet for older adults, it acts like an essential layer of protection. Without enough of it, the body cannot properly use calcium or phosphate, the core minerals that build and maintain strong bones. And when bones weaken, the risks extend far beyond aches or posture changes. A single fracture after 60 can mean months of limited mobility, reduced independence, and in some cases, health setbacks that are hard to reverse. Many seniors report fearing a hip fracture more than almost any other condition because the recovery can be long and disruptive. What makes it harder is that vitamin D deficiency is usually silent. There are no warning signs until brittle bones finally give way. The biology explains this vulnerability. As the body ages, the skin becomes less efficient at turning sunlight into vitamin D. What might have taken 20 minutes outdoors at 30 can require far longer exposure in the 70s, and even then the production is much weaker. Some protective habits, less time spent outside, and colder climates add further obstacles. That is why deficiency rates are so high among seniors worldwide. Research consistently shows that older adults with chronic low levels face a much higher risk of fractures. Beyond bone health, low vitamin D also weakens immune defenses, which helps explain why colds, flu, and pneumonia hit harder in this age group. Fortunately, this is one of the easier problems to identify and address. A simple blood test called 25-hydroxy vitamin D, 25-OH vitamin D, shows where your levels stand. From there, adjustments are clear and much safer than guessing. Guidelines differ by age and location, but many large studies have used doses of around 2,000 IU of vitamin D3 per day. This is not a prescription for everyone, but it illustrates the range often tested in trials. After getting your result, your clinician can tailor the dose to your body, review your medications for any interactions, and set a schedule for rechecking levels. This minimizes the risk of overshooting, which can put stress on the kidneys or lead to calcium deposits in places they don't belong. Vitamin D toxicity is uncommon but possible, so one take-home message is to test before starting high doses and to follow a plan specific to you. When supplementation is used appropriately, the effect is direct. Vitamin D serves as the signal that tells calcium where to go. Without it, the body pulls calcium out of bone to maintain blood levels, leaving the skeleton thinner and more fragile. Restoring vitamin D reverses this process by directing calcium back into bone. Many seniors only discover years of hidden deficiency once a scan reveals osteoporosis or after already suffering fractures. Supplementing earlier interrupts this decline before it becomes obvious on an X-ray. Its value is not confined to the skeleton. Vitamin D also plays a role in immune regulation. people with low levels often experience more respiratory infections, especially in winter months when sunlight exposure is lowest. Multiple studies indicate that maintaining healthy levels can cut risk or reduce severity of these infections. Stronger immunity means fewer illnesses that disrupt routines or lead to hospital stays. Beyond infection resistance, newer research is opening even more possibilities. A 2025 sub-study from the Large Vital Trial reported that 2,000 IU per day of vitamin D3 slowed the shortening of telomeres, the caps that protect chromosomes. Participants on vitamin D supplementation maintained longer telomeres over 4 years, which researchers suggested might translate into nearly 3 years of biological youth preserved. However, this is emerging evidence. The authors themselves note the need for longer, more diverse trials before confirming this benefit. It is not proof that supplementation reverses aging, but it raises intriguing possibilities for how maintaining healthy vitamin D may influence cellular health. Guidelines also continue to evolve. In 2024, the Endocrine Society noted that supplementation in adults over 75 may modestly reduce mortality risk. That does not mean vitamin D alone guarantees a longer life, but it emphasizes that correcting a deficiency carries broad potential benefits beyond fracture prevention. Even with some studies showing mixed results, the overall weight of evidence supports checking levels and optimizing them in later decades. In daily life, applying this is far simpler than it sounds. Vitamin D supplements are available as tablets, soft gels, and liquid drops. Some combine vitamin D with vitamin K2, aiming to improve calcium's placement in bone rather than arteries. This added partner nutrient is not required, but has gained popularity among those focused on bone and cardiovascular health. Dosing schedules can also be adjusted. Some prefer a steady intake each morning, while others use higher dose capsules once every few weeks. Both methods can be effective if blood levels are monitored periodically to prevent drifting into deficiency or excess. Diet can contribute, though it rarely meets full requirements for seniors. Fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel are the strongest natural sources. Egg yolks and fortified dairy products add some, but unless eaten consistently, food alone usually cannot bridge the gap after a deficiency is established. Supplementation functions as the main source, with food and modest sunlight as supportive extras. Sunlight continues to hold importance, even if vitamin D output declines with age. Moderate outdoor exposure still provides value and carries other health effects such as regulating sleep cycles and supporting mood. For seniors already supplementing, time outside shifts its role from primary source to added benefit. It remains wise to combine safe sun exposure, nourishing foods, and supplements rather than relying on a single strategy. This layered approach ensures steadier, more reliable levels in the long term. Fractures caused by deficiency are not isolated injuries. They can trigger a series of changes: immobility, reduced strength, extended rehabilitation, and increased dependency on others. Rebuilding bone strength is harder than losing it, which is why prevention matters so much more than repair. In studies, older adults who normalized their vitamin D levels showed about a 30% lower fracture rate compared with those who remained deficient. That number represents more than just fewer hospital visits. It means maintaining confidence, independence, and higher quality of life. In addition, many participants in supplementation trials reported improved mood and energy, suggesting vitamin D's effects extend to how people feel day to day. It is easy to dismiss a simple supplement, but for older adults, vitamin D represents one of the most practical tools available. It strengthens bone scaffolding, sharpens immune defenses, and may even nudge biological aging at the cellular level. When combined with regular monitoring, it offers benefits with few downsides. The bigger mistake is often neglecting it altogether. The most actionable step is straightforward: request a 25-OH vitamin D test at your next checkup. If the result shows deficiency, your clinician will advise a safe supplementation plan and schedule follow-up checks. Correcting deficiency is not dramatic, but it is powerful, supporting bone health, immune function, and possibly broader aspects of long-term aging. For seniors, this proactive step functions less like an optional extra and more like a form of insurance for stability and independence. Caring for bones and immunity through vitamin D is one piece of the larger picture. Another equally important part of maintaining resilience as you age is managing how the body responds to physical activity, because exercise at this stage brings its own set of challenges and opportunities. Exercising without overtraining. Exercising without overtraining becomes one of the most important adjustments after 60. At this stage, it isn't about proving stamina or keeping up with younger routines. It's about building strength and resilience while protecting recovery capacity. Pushing the body too hard backfires, turning good intentions into setbacks instead of progress. What matters most is staying consistent with the right amount of activity, done at the right intensity, with rest built in as part of the plan. Motivation is rarely the limiting factor. In fact, many people feel more eager to exercise during retirement because their schedules finally allow it. The challenge is that older bodies do not respond the same way to endless workouts. Muscle repair happens more slowly. Hormones shift recovery dynamics, and what could be shrugged off at 40 can linger for days or weeks past 60. Overtraining sneaks up more easily, and instead of building fitness, too much effort can drain energy and cause persistent soreness. One of the quieter effects shows up through hormones. When exercise intensity is pushed without adequate recovery, cortisol, the body's main stress hormone, rises and hangs around longer. This catabolic pattern encourages breakdown of muscle tissue right when you most need to maintain it. Testosterone and growth hormone, which help repair and strengthen muscles, also decline with age, so recovery requires more care. What feels like fatigue, disrupted sleep, or stubborn weight gain may not be normal aging at all. It may be a response to training loads that outpace your recovery window. Joints and connective tissue create their own limits. Cartilage thins with age, and tendons become less elastic. Jump-based moves, long pavement runs, or heavy lifts done without modifications can trigger pain instead of resilience. Pain in knees, hips, or shoulders isn't just post-workout soreness. Often it's a signal that too much stress was applied on structures that no longer recover as quickly. Ignoring those messages increases the chance of flare-ups or injuries that disrupt long-term routines. So what does safe, effective training look like in later years? Research points to 3 central rules that guide progress without burnout. First, make strength training a priority at least twice a week and supplement it with balance and mobility practice daily. Strength work preserves muscle mass and bone density, while balance and mobility drills reduce fall risk and protect joints during everyday movement. Second, anchor cardio around low-impact activities like walking or swimming, mixing in active recovery days instead of stacking hard workouts back-to-back. These forms of movement elevate circulation and metabolism without creating excess stress. Third, learn to interpret recovery signals. If fatigue, poor sleep, or soreness lasts more than 72 hours after a session, scale back. That's your body saying repair is lagging behind demand. Walking, while basic, remains the cornerstone of these routines. Moderate pace walks help cardiovascular function, improve mood, and provide gentle motion for joints. Because they place minimal load on cartilage, walking can be done most days without risk of overtraining. Even short walks after meals improve glucose control and protect insulin sensitivity, making this simple habit one of the most effective tools available. Swimming or cycling can be rotated in as well, since they preserve cardiovascular fitness while shifting pressure away from knees and hips. Strength training requires some adjustments compared to earlier decades. The goal isn't maximum weight, but steady tension that recruits muscle fibers and signals bones to stay strong. Squats to a chair, wall push-ups, or resistance bands accomplish this safely. Slow, controlled movements, repeated in short sets, do more for long-term resilience than trying to match performance-focused routines. Importantly, protein after strength sessions supports muscle recovery, and distributing it evenly across the day makes retention more effective. Pairing shorter, focused strength blocks with proper nutrition protects lean mass while avoiding hormonal strain. Mobility and balance work deserve a daily spot. Short sessions of stretching or a few yoga poses loosen stiff tissues that have often tightened from decades of sitting and repetitive motions. 10 minutes of mobility drills reduce aches, smooth out movement patterns, and prime muscles to work efficiently during strength or cardio sessions. Balance practice, like standing on one foot while holding onto a countertop, directly reduces the chance of falls. Many seniors skip this work because it looks less intense, yet its rewards for independence are enormous. Managing recovery is also non-negotiable. This doesn't mean abandoning daily activity. The key distinction is between intensity and light movement. Daily gentle motion, walking, stretching, or light cycling supports circulation and aids recovery. But trying to load muscles heavily every day is what leads to overtraining. Plan strength sessions 2 or 3 times per week. Surround them with lighter days, and keep at least one day fully devoted to recovery. Active recovery sessions bring blood flow to tissues without creating more damage, making subsequent workouts more productive. Modifications keep training accessible while protecting joints. Traditional lunges can shift to supported split squats using a chair. Deep squats can be reduced in depth, still maintaining benefit without compressing knees. Even pull-based movements take body weight off joints while letting muscles work hard. These small adjustments turn exercises from potentially damaging to lifelong sustainable. The measure of success isn't in pushing boundaries, but in finding a pace that can continue comfortably for years ahead. A reliable rule of thumb for seniors. Intensity should feel challenging but not exhausting. If exercise frequently leaves you drained or disrupts your nightly sleep, the dosage is wrong. Monitoring how you feel over several days is more accurate than how tough a workout feels in the moment. Warning signs to respect include persistent fatigue, prolonged soreness, irritability, and a sudden drop in performance. Each signals the need to rest longer, lighten loads, or shorten duration. Another strategy supported by research is smaller, more consistent sessions. Shorter strength workouts, 20 to 30 minutes, produce effective gains without overwhelming repair capacity. Layered with steady cardio through walking or swimming, this structure accumulates benefits while hormones and muscles stay in balance. Spreading protein intake after workouts directly supports tissue repair, helping recovery keep pace. Gradual progression, rather than sudden jumps in volume or resistance, prevents stress overload. If you already follow an exercise plan, one practical step is to add a complete rest or active recovery day this week. During that day, substitute stretching or a gentle walk for a formal workout. Then notice how your energy, mood, and sleep feel afterward. If you wake with more energy and less soreness, it's a sign that your previous plan leaned too hard on intensity. This kind of personal experiment keeps training guided by results instead of assumptions. When exercise balances strength, mobility, and recovery, it strengthens the foundations needed for independence, stability, energy, and resilience without creating strain that sidelines progress. Seniors who master this equilibrium remain active and engaged far longer because the consistency of moderate training pays bigger dividends than bursts of harder intensity. But supporting muscles through exercise is only half of the equation. Training can only rebuild what daily nutrition makes available, And one of the most overlooked gaps in senior health is not about carbohydrates or fats at all. It comes from a nutrient directly tied to strength itself. The protein gap nobody talks about. Protein shortfalls are common in older adults and play a major role in the gradual loss of muscle strength and mobility. Past 60, appetite often declines. Meals that once felt satisfying now feel too large, or hunger cues arrive far less often. On the surface, this can seem like a positive change. Eating less might look like a way to control weight, but in practice, it often leads to not getting enough protein. Over time, this sets the stage for muscle loss, weakness, and eventually greater risk of frailty. That muscle decline has a name: sarcopenia. It's the slow, steady shrinking of muscle mass and strength that many people assume is simply aging. But sarcopenia is not just inevitable wear and tear. It is often accelerated by inadequate protein. For many, the first signs are small. Standing up from a chair takes more effort, carrying groceries becomes draining, or stairs feel more like an obstacle than they used to. By the time these limits are noticeable, the underlying loss has been building for years. Preventing it hinges on keeping daily protein intake reliable. The tricky part is that low protein isn't as obvious as other deficiencies. You may notice thirst when dehydrated or brittle nails when iron runs low, but protein shortages rarely send such direct signals. Instead, it shows up months later as fatigue or diminished strength. That's why prevention matters so much. By the time the weakness is apparent, rebuilding is more difficult than maintaining strength in the first place. One reason seniors need more protein than younger adults is something researchers call anabolic resistance. Simply put, the body becomes less efficient at turning protein from food into new muscle. 10 grams of protein at 20 years old stimulates growth easily, but at 70 the same amount does far less. That inefficiency needs to be countered by more frequent, balanced portions of protein spread through the day, rather than loading one large serving at dinner. Aiming for steady distribution across breakfast, lunch, and dinner helps keep muscles supplied with what they need. A clinician or dietitian can help tailor exact needs, but the principle of spacing protein consistently is useful for nearly everyone. Breakfast is often the meal where protein is most missed. For decades, common choices like toast, cereal, or oatmeal established habits that carry into older life. While comforting, they leave protein too low to stop muscle loss. Simple substitutions like eggs, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, or a small protein smoothie shift the balance quickly. Even adding a scoop of protein powder into oatmeal transforms it into something capable of helping muscle repair instead of just spiking blood sugar. Lunch represents another opportunity. A salad with only vegetables may look light and healthy, but without a protein addition like beans, chicken, tuna, or tofu, it won't contribute to protecting muscle. Dinner usually supplies the largest protein portion, but it's consistency across the earlier parts of the day that closes the gap seniors often face. Research reinforces this strategy. Seniors who consistently meet protein goals show a marked ability to maintain independence longer. Daily tasks such as walking without a cane, carrying household items safely, or completing basic chores remain manageable. Studies have also linked protein intake to reduced fall risk, since stronger muscles align with better stability. While numbers vary across research, the overall pattern is clear. Higher, balanced protein intake lowers the chance of dependency. Think of this as a daily investment in resilience, a small effort now that compounds into strength years later. The source of protein is flexible, but quality matters. Animal proteins such as fish, poultry, eggs, and dairy deliver all essential amino acids in efficient form. Grass-fed red meat, while not essential for everyone, is dense in protein plus iron, zinc, and B vitamins. For those who find red meat heavy, smaller amounts or alternating it with fish can offer benefits without straining digestion. for plant-based eaters. Thoughtful planning makes the difference. Individual plant proteins may lack one or two amino acids, but combinations across the day, like beans with grains or tofu with vegetables, provide the necessary balance. The American Diabetes Association's 2025 Standards of Care highlight the role of fiber-rich plant proteins as excellent choices for older adults. With mindful variety, plant-based diets can meet protein needs effectively. Another adjustment is that protein needs rise while calorie needs decline with age. It sounds counterintuitive, but it means choosing smaller meals that carry more nutrients in each bite. Examples include Greek yogurt instead of sweet pudding or salmon instead of processed lunch meats. These swaps preserve muscle while keeping calorie intake moderate. Because appetite often diminishes, large servings aren't always practical. Lighter, more frequent doses may work better. A small shake between meals, a mix of beans blended into soup, or a spoonful of nut butter with fruit compacts protein into a form that doesn't overwhelm. These subtle additions create enough steady intake without relying on one oversized dinner. Even small amounts added here and there accumulate into meaningful results. Social influences matter, too. Seniors eating alone often consume less overall, protein included. Meals shared with others, whether with family, neighbors, or through senior community programs, tend to increase intake naturally. Eating in company doesn't simply make meals more enjoyable. It can be the difference between meeting or falling short of daily protein needs. By combining social routines with nutritional awareness, two important aspects of health connection and nutrition are supported jointly. Medications add another complication. Some suppress appetite, others alter taste, and certain drugs interfere with nutrient absorption. This can make protein more difficult to maintain without special effort. In those cases, texture-modified foods like soups, yogurts, or protein-rich smoothies may be easier to tolerate. Adjustments like these ensure protein isn't lost simply because eating feels less appealing. When these gaps are corrected, results often come faster than expected. Many older adults notice steadier energy, greater ease in moving from sitting to standing, and fewer stumbles while walking. Resistance training paired with higher protein intake accelerates these improvements, but even without exercise changes, protein alone helps muscles resist decline. Beyond mobility, higher protein intake supports blood sugar control, keeps insulin levels steadier, and provides satiety that reduces unnecessary snacking. The ripple effects reach well beyond muscle preservation. The benefits are cumulative over years. Every portion of protein consumed consistently builds a foundation that supports independence in later life. While it won't eliminate aging processes altogether, maintaining strength and stability lengthens the period of autonomy, which remains one of the most valued outcomes for seniors. In effect, protein functions like a savings account for independence. The earlier and more steadily you contribute, the longer the benefits continue. Making the change doesn't need to be complicated. One implementation step to try immediately is this: add one intentional protein source to your very next breakfast. This could be a serving of Greek yogurt, a couple of eggs, or a small protein smoothie. Then, over the next week, pay attention to how your strength and energy feel by late morning or midday. Many find this single adjustment creates noticeable improvement, reinforcing the habit without extra effort. Protein shortfalls are only one piece of the wider nutrition puzzle older adults face. Alongside food choices, the way medications interact with nutrients can quietly influence whether strength and energy improve or decline. Understanding how prescriptions affect absorption and balance is the next step in maintaining long-term resilience. The double-edged sword of medication and nutrition. For many older adults, daily life already revolves around managing medications. Morning pills, midday tablets, and evening prescriptions become routine, often adding up to 5 or more drugs. This pattern known as polypharmacy, provides important treatment for chronic conditions, but it comes with a less obvious cost. Medications can quietly alter nutrient balance. Over time, these changes can mimic the signs of aging, fatigue, weaker muscles, or slowing memory that may have more to do with nutrition interactions than with age itself. A well-documented example involves diuretics prescribed for conditions such as high blood pressure and fluid retention. These medications increase fluid loss, but they also flush away important electrolytes, including potassium and magnesium. Both are essential for muscle contraction and heart rhythm. When levels drop, cramps, weakness, or even irregular heartbeats can appear. Because these symptoms resemble ordinary aging issues, the medication's nutritional impact is often overlooked. Regular monitoring and, when necessary, supplementation can correct the imbalance, but only if the link is recognized. Other common prescriptions can affect appetite, absorption, or digestion in subtler ways. Certain antidepressants may dampen appetite, making food less appealing and reducing overall intake. Pain-relieving drugs or digestive medications can interfere with how nutrients are absorbed in the gut, compounding deficiencies over time. The result is a two-sided burden on nutrition: diminished desire to eat and lowered efficiency in extracting nutrients from food. Left unchecked, it accelerates weakness, frailty, and recovery delays. These shifts do not occur overnight, but their accumulation often shows up as fatigue or muscle decline that feels like just getting older. This is where clinical context becomes crucial. Many symptoms that appear to belong to aging may instead reflect underlying medication effects. But it is not enough to say drugs alone cause them. Fatigue, weakness, or foggy thinking can also come from stress, low activity, or chronic illness. Only a clinician can evaluate how medications and diet interact for an individual patient. The key is to consider both sides at once. Overlooking the nutrition piece risks treating symptoms with more prescriptions when diet or supplementation may be the missing part of the picture. A systematic review process makes a profound difference. Pharmacists, in particular, are trained to notice patterns others miss. They know which blood pressure pills may drain electrolytes, which therapies interfere with absorption, and which combinations may magnify appetite loss. Geriatric clinicians add another layer of expertise, since they regularly see these patterns play out among older patients. A focused medication and nutrition review allows professionals to identify subtle drains and recommend targeted steps, such as electrolyte checks or adjusted meal planning. This type of review is not theoretical. Recent research consistently shows that polypharmacy in seniors contributes to hidden nutrient depletion. Detecting the issue early can prevent declines in strength, reduce fall risk, and improve concentration. Something as direct as rebalancing electrolytes or adjusting meal timing can relieve symptoms that might otherwise prompt new diagnoses or additional prescriptions. Instead of spiraling into more medications, a careful review pulls the problem back to something manageable and reversible. For patients, one of the simplest strategies is also one of the most effective. Schedule a pharmacy review and ask directly, which nutrients should I monitor? This one question condenses a complex process into a clear, actionable step. Studies suggest that structured reviews like this improve quality of life measures by bringing attention to nutrition-drug interactions before they escalate. The advice may be as straightforward as testing potassium more frequently or supplementing a basic vitamin under supervision, but its impact can be measured in daily energy and stability. Another reason reviews matter is that symptoms of depletion tend to overlap with major diagnoses. Fatigue may be recorded as depression, irregular heart function as heart failure, or memory lapses as cognitive decline. Each new label can generate its own treatment and often its own new prescriptions without addressing nutrition. First, the cycle expands unnecessarily. By incorporating a medication and diet lens early, unnecessary additions can be avoided, keeping treatment simpler and safer. The conversation does more than correct deficiencies. It also restores a sense of control. Many older adults feel passive in the face of long medicine lists, resigned to carrying a pill organizer everywhere. But when they see that adjustments in meals or supplements can offset some of the hidden costs of those prescriptions, the role shifts from passive to active. They become participants in their care, choosing foods and nutrients that protect their energy and preserve independence. That change builds confidence and reduces fear that the body is simply declining for reasons beyond their control. The broader health community increasingly echoes this point. Guidelines released in 2025, especially in relation to diabetes and cardiovascular management, stress how interconnected medication, nutrition, and lifestyle are for older adults. Polypharmacy is not going away, but its side effects can be measured, managed, and in many cases reduced by habits as routinized as lab work or daily pills. Clinicians now encourage pairing medication reviews with nutritional checks, reinforcing that one cannot be understood fully without the other. For seniors on multiple prescriptions, the action steps are achievable. Arrange a medication review once a year with a pharmacist or geriatric doctor. Bring your medication list, including over-the-counter drugs and supplements. Ask plainly which nutrients might be affected and whether hydration or electrolytes need closer tracking. These conversations bring hidden issues into the open and set clear plans for simple checks or dietary adjustments. By managing medications with nutrition in mind, older adults often feel more energetic, steadier when walking, and clearer in concentration. Importantly, the interventions tend to be small but cumulative. Adding nutrient monitoring into regular care reduces the chances of misdiagnosed fatigue, avoids unnecessary extra prescriptions, and secures a stronger base for the years ahead. The relief that comes with realizing weakness or tiredness may not be fixed by another pill, but by restoring something missing in the diet is considerable. Every medication carries both benefits and hidden trade-offs. A structured approach, asking the right questions, conducting reviews, and pairing prescriptions with nutritional checks, ensures that the advantages remain without quietly draining vitality. The double-edged sword does not need to cut one way more than the other. With vigilance, seniors can use both blades constructively. Looking at medications this way highlights that health is never just clinical or chemical. It exists in the patterns of daily living. And nowhere is that clearer than at the table, where meals do more than sustain the body. They carry history, emotion, and connection, which often prove just as critical for well-being as any prescribed treatment. The overlooked social side of eating. The way meals are experienced changes dramatically with age. And one often overlooked piece of health is what happens when those meals are shared, or not. The social side of eating plays a critical role in both physical well-being and emotional stability, yet it tends to receive far less attention than calories, nutrients, or exercise routines. For older adults, especially, isolation at the table can become a quiet but powerful strain on health. Mealtime loneliness is now recognized as a major risk factor for seniors. Regular research shows that isolation does not just dampen mood. It contributes to declining health across multiple systems. Where this often plays out most visibly is at the table, when meals once marked by conversation become silent and solitary. Restoring social eating is one of the most practical, low-cost ways to improve both nutrition and mental resilience, yet it remains underutilized. Eating without company may seem harmless because the food still provides nutrients, but environment shapes more than what's on the plate. Shared meals naturally slow the pace of eating, which improves digestion and helps the body register fullness on time. With company, blood flow to the gut increases, food is digested more smoothly, and portions are more balanced. Conversely, solitary eating is often rushed, irregular, or distracted. Some finish meals too quickly and stop before their bodies are satisfied. Others overeat because silence invites mindless snacking. Both patterns disrupt nutrient absorption and energy balance. Beyond digestion, isolation affects routine itself. Cooking for one can feel unmotivating, so elaborate or nutritious meals are swapped for packaged snacks or skipped altogether. Appetite also weakens without the social context of preparing a meal for someone else. Over time, this narrows food variety and protein intake, accelerating muscle loss and frailty. What looks like a personal choice, skipping dinner or keeping meals simple, may in reality be a symptom of eating in isolation. At the same time, the benefits of shared eating are striking. Consistent mealtime interaction lowers depression risk, increases diet quality, and even links to longer life expectancy. Elderly adults who eat socially more often report higher mood, steadier energy, and better engagement with daily life. Mental resilience improves when conversations around the table provide structure and connection. Research also suggests that eating with others and practicing mindful or intuitive eating are associated with healthier dietary patterns and lower mental distress. In other words, the act of paying attention to both food and company forms a reliable framework for overall health. Practical barriers still exist. Families may live far apart, mobility may be limited, and schedules may not align. Yet modern adaptations are proving effective. Video calls during meals, whether breakfast with distant children or dinner check-ins with friends, provide real-time connection. While not identical to in-person gatherings, even virtual meals restore conversation, laughter, and slower pacing. For many seniors, this bridge significantly reduces feelings of isolation. Community meal programs are another proven tool. Senior centers, faith-based organizations, and local councils often run lunch programs where nutritious food is shared family style. These gatherings do more than provide a meal. They create reliable opportunities for connection. Attendees not only eat more well-balanced diets, but also report feeling less isolated and more included. Consistency is the real strength. Knowing there will be weekly or twice-weekly social meals helps anchor the rest of the week. Smaller networks also matter. In neighborhoods, groups sometimes rotate cooking duties, so each person contributes to shared meals on different days. This spreads the effort and ensures variety. For older adults who might otherwise eat the same limited foods alone, these shared routines add both motivation and balance. The simple presence of expectation, other people waiting for you, restores energy to cooking and eating. Families can modify traditions in realistic ways. While daily dinners may be impractical, weekly lunches or regular Sunday meals establish strong links. Even monthly gatherings provide structure and something important to anticipate. For families spread across distances, rotating virtual meals or scheduled calls work similarly. These rituals revive the sense of belonging to a table, even if it is presented differently than in the past. The physiological ripple effects of social meals extend beyond digestion and appetite. Sharing a table lengthens meal times, which has measurable benefits for older adults with blood sugar challenges. Eating slowly helps spread glucose absorption more evenly, supporting insulin sensitivity. Shared conversation, without any conscious effort, turns meals into a natural tool for metabolic protection. Memory and cognition also benefit. Conversations at lunch or dinner recruit language centers and memory recall pathways. For seniors experiencing early declines, this ongoing stimulation keeps mental circuits more active. Because meals are already part of the daily routine, attaching conversations to them creates a sustainable form of brain engagement more naturally than separate cognitive drills. Small actions add up quickly. going to a diner once a week with friends, calling a sibling during lunch, or joining a group program at a community center all shift meals from isolated to interactive. Each step supports both nutritional intake and mental well-being. It's not about replicating every meal as a communal event. It's about making sure at least some of them carry this social dimension consistently. Taken together, the evidence is consistent. Isolation reshapes food choices, eating speed and nutrient balance in negative ways, while social meals encourage variety, balance, and laughter. That difference accumulates into tangible health outcomes. Seniors who eat socially tend to maintain stronger bodies, steadier moods, and greater resilience over time. One immediate step to try is simple. Set up one social meal this week. That might mean inviting someone to lunch, arranging a phone call while eating, or attending a community meal. Notice how appetite feels and whether mood lifts afterward. The effect is often stronger than expected, and repeating it over weeks steadily transforms both dietary patterns and quality of life. Paying attention to meals in this way shows that health is not guided only by nutrients or medications. It's also guided by relationships and routines. Shared meals make food more nourishing and life more stable. And when combined with the other adjustments already discussed, they create a practical pattern that supports aging well. This brings the focus back to the larger picture. Good health after 60 is not locked inside one nutrient, supplement, or habit. Each element, from hydration to vitamin support to meal companionship, contributes to a broader rhythm of living that matches the body's current needs. And with that understanding, the question becomes how to adjust those rhythms in everyday life so that the years ahead feel stronger and more sustainable. The conclusion is not about chasing one perfect diet or piling on more supplements. It's about choosing a few practical steps you can start this week that work with your body right now. Here are 4 simple actions. Get 1 lab test, either vitamin D or fasting insulin, so you know your baseline. Add a protein source to breakfast each day. Try a 12 to 14-hour overnight fast for 1 week, and schedule a medication nutrition review with your pharmacist or doctor. Comment below with which step you'll begin. A few thoughtful changes now can make the next years feel more energetic and independent.